I see him before he sees me, which gives me exactly 3 seconds to decide whether to leave. I don't leave. He's standing in the airport terminal at Miami International, waiting for luggage at the carousel, and he looks like every version of himself I've ever loved compressed into one devastating moment. He's taller than I remember. His shoulders are broader. His face is harder. There are lines around his eyes that weren't there before, shadows that suggest sleepless nights and decisions he wishes he hadn't made. But it's him. It's unmistakably him. Gabriel Morales, the man I was supposed to marry. It's been 8 years since I've seen him in person. 8 years since he disappeared into a world that I didn't understand and couldn't follow. 8 years of trying to convince myself that I'd moved on, that I'd built a life without him, that I was fine. I'm not fine. Apparently, I'm not fine at all. He reaches for a black duffel bag on the carousel, and I see the movement like it's happening in slow motion. The familiar way he moves. The scar on his forearm that he got when he was 19, trying to impress his cousin with a motorcycle he didn't know how to ride. Everything about him is familiar and foreign at the same time. His eyes scan the airport, and they land on me. For a moment, nothing happens. We just look at each other across a distance of maybe 50 feet, and I feel like I'm 18 years old again, sitting in his car at a beach at sunset, listening to him tell me that I was the only thing in his life that made sense. Then recognition hits his face like a physical blow. He sets down his duffel bag and starts walking toward me, and I realize that I should probably move, or speak, or do literally anything other than stand frozen like an idiot. Maya, he says when he reaches me, and his voice is the same voice that's lived in my head for 8 years. Deeper maybe, more controlled, but unmistakably his. Gabriel, I reply, and my voice sounds like it belongs to someone else. Someone braver, someone who didn't spend the last 8 years trying to forget this man. What are you doing here? He asks. I live here, I say. I moved to Miami 3 years ago. I work at a hospital, cardiology nursing. I have an apartment near Brickell. I have a life that's very normal and very full and has absolutely nothing to do with you. It's a lie. None of that is technically untrue. I do all of those things, but everything in my life has everything to do with him. Every dating app profile was rejected because no one was him. Every job I took was partially because it was in a city where he might be. Every decision I made was made in the shadow of Gabriel Morales. You look incredible, he says, and he's looking at me like he's trying to memorize me again, like he's afraid I'm going to disappear if he stops looking. You look different, I reply, which is also a lie. He looks like a man who's become dangerous. He looks like a man who's done things that I don't want to know about. He looks like someone who's either going to be very good for me or very bad for me, and I'm not sure which. I've changed, he says. Since you last saw me, I'm not the same person. I know, I say, because I can see it. I can see it in the way he carries himself, in the coldness around his eyes, in the precise way he moves like he's always calculating 3 steps ahead. Can I buy you a coffee? He asks. Just one coffee, and then I'll disappear again if that's what you want. I should say no. I should turn around and walk back to my car and drive home and block his number and pretend this never happened. Instead, I say yes. We go to a coffee shop in the airport, and we sit at a small table in a corner, and it feels like the most intimate moment of my life. The coffee shop is generic, the kind of place you find in every airport, serving mediocre coffee to people who are either arriving or leaving or waiting for the next phase of their lives. But with Gabriel across from me, it feels like the most significant place I've ever been. Tell me about your life, Gabriel says, and don't give me the summary. Give me the real story. Where have you been? What have you been doing? Who have you become? So I tell him. I tell him about college, about nursing school, about the first hospital I worked at in Denver. I tell him about the apartment that was too small. I tell him about the decision to move to Miami because I needed a change of scenery and because I was running away from the ghost of him. I don't tell him any of that last part, but I think he knows. I tell him about my friends, about the roommate I had in Denver who tried to set me up on dates constantly. I tell him about the volunteer work I did at a community health clinic. I tell him about the parts of my life that mattered. I leave out the parts where I found myself sitting in my car outside addresses I thought might be his. I leave out the parts where I stalked his name on the internet. I leave out the parts where I asked people we used to know if they'd heard from him. I leave out the parts where I lived my entire life haunted by his absence. "You sound good," he says when I finish. "You sound happy." "I am," I lie. "Or at least I was, before I saw you. Now I'm not sure what I am." "Are you seeing anyone?" he asks. "No," I say. "Are you?" "No," he replies. "I can't. I'm not. I'm not in a position to be in a relationship with a normal person. My life is too complicated." "Too complicated how?" I ask, even though I already know. I've known for years. You don't disappear on someone you love and then become impossible to have a relationship with unless you're involved in something illegal. You don't gain the kind of hardness that I can see in Gabriel's face unless you've done things that change you fundamentally. "I can't tell you," he says. "It's safer if you don't know." "I'm not asking for specifics," I say. "I'm asking you to tell me what you are. Because I deserve to know if I'm going to sit here and pretend that this coffee is just a casual encounter and not the moment that everything in my life changes again." He's quiet for a long time. He stirs his coffee, and he doesn't look at me, and I can see him calculating whether to tell me the truth or continue lying. "I'm involved in organized crime," he says finally. "I run distribution across the Southeast. I make approximately $100 million a year. I've probably been responsible for at least 20 deaths, though I try to minimize collateral damage when possible. I'm one of the most dangerous men in Miami, and I'm probably going to prison eventually. And I never stopped loving you, not for a single day in the 8 years since I left." I process this information. Part of me already knew this. Part of me had constructed this possibility in my head 1,000 times, but hearing it spoken aloud is different. Hearing him say it makes it real in a way that speculation never could. "Okay," I say. "Okay?" He asks, like he expected me to stand up and leave or call the police or do literally anything other than sit there and drink my coffee. "I'm processing," I say. "Give me a moment. You're a cartel boss. You've killed people. You're going to prison. You've been in love with me for 8 years. I need to figure out what I feel about all of that." "What do you feel?" he asks. "Scared," I say. "Angry, betrayed, attracted to you. Confused about whether I should be here. And underneath all of that, I still love you, which is the worst possible thing I could feel right now, given all the information you just gave me." "I know," he says, "and I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I left. I'm sorry that I became this person. I'm sorry that I'm still the thing that you want when I'm the last thing you need." "Why did you leave?" I ask. 8 years ago, you could have told me. You could have asked me to come with you. You could have done anything except just disappear." "Because I loved you," he says. "And I knew that if I stayed, I'd pull you into my world. I knew that loving you and being a criminal were incompatible, so I chose to be a criminal alone. It was the most unselfish thing I've ever done, and it was also the biggest mistake of my life." After we leave the coffee shop, Gabriel takes me to dinner at a restaurant that's quiet and private, and somehow exactly where I'd want to be. The restaurant is called Milagros, and it's tucked away on a side street in Wynwood. It's the kind of place that looks like it might be closed from the outside. But inside it's warm and intimate with exposed brick walls and soft lighting and tables that are spaced far enough apart that you can have a private conversation without anyone overhearing. Gabriel clearly has a relationship with the owner, a woman named Rosa who greets him with familiarity and seats us at the best table in the restaurant, in the back corner where we can see everyone but no one can see us clearly. Over dinner, he tells me about the 8 years since he left. He started working for a cartel boss named Victor when he was 24 years old. Just distribution initially, low-level work that paid better than anything legitimate. He didn't plan to stay. He told himself it was temporary, that he'd make enough money to get out of his neighborhood, to build a life, to eventually come back to me with stability and security. But then he was good at it. Too good. Within 2 years, he was running operations. Within 5 years, he was running the entire Southeast Division. He made more money than he ever thought possible, and he built an empire, and he became a person that he didn't recognize. "I started to justify it," he tells me. I told myself that I was just selling to people who were going to buy from someone anyway, so it might as well be me. I told myself that I wasn't a violent person. I was just in a violent business. I told myself all the things that people tell themselves when they're doing terrible things and need to feel okay about it. But you're not okay about it, I say. No, he agrees. I'm not. I haven't been okay about it for a very long time. Why didn't you reach out? I ask, even just to say hello, even just to let me know that you were alive. Because I was afraid, he says. I was afraid that if I saw you, I'd want to change. And I couldn't change. I was too deep in it by then. I had people depending on me. I had enemies who would use you against me if they knew you existed. I had no choice but to be exactly what I'd become. You always have a choice, I say. Do I? He asks. Or does society make certain choices for you based on where you were born, and what opportunities you were given, and whether you were willing to do things that other people weren't willing to do? I don't have an answer to that question. When did you know you were going to come back? I ask. About a year ago, Gabriel says. I realized that the empire I'd built wasn't making me happy. I had everything I thought I wanted: money, power, respect, and I was completely empty. And I realized that the only thing that had ever made me happy was you. The only real thing in my entire life was the memory of loving you. So you came back, I say. So I came back, he confirms. I knew it was selfish. I knew I was probably going to ruin whatever life you'd built. But I couldn't not come back. I had to see you. I had to know if there was any possibility that you could forgive me for leaving. After dinner, we drive to the beach where we used to spend time when we were younger. The beach is called South Point Park, and it's one of the most beautiful places in Miami. At sunset, it's almost unbearably gorgeous. The water turns golden, the sky explodes into shades of orange and pink and purple, and the entire world feels like it's holding its breath. I haven't been to this beach in 8 years. I haven't been able to. We park and we walk out onto the sand, and Gabriel takes my hand like it's the most natural thing in the world, and I let him because I'm apparently someone who makes terrible decisions. The beach is nearly empty, just a few joggers and people walking their dogs and tourists taking sunset photos. We walk down toward the water, and Gabriel stops at a place that's clearly significant to him, and I realize that it's the exact spot where we used to sit when we were younger. Do you remember when we were here and you told me that you wanted to have 3 kids? He asks. Yes, I say. I remember. I still think about that, he says. I still think about the life we were supposed to have. The house with the backyard, the kids, the normal, boring, beautiful life that you deserved. We sit down on the sand, and the sun is setting, and Gabriel is holding my hand, and it feels like no time has passed at all. It feels like we're still 18 and 19 years old, with our whole lives in front of us and no idea how badly we're going to fuck it all up. I wanted to marry you, I tell him. I wanted to give you that normal life. I was willing to do anything to make that happen. I know, he says. That's why I had to leave. I couldn't let you sacrifice your life for someone like me. That wasn't your choice to make, I say. That was my choice. And you took it away from me. I know, he says. I'm sorry. I've had 8 years to regret that decision, and I regret it every single day. We sit there as the sun disappears into the ocean, and Gabriel puts his arm around me, and I lean into him, and it feels like coming home to a place I've been trying to leave for 8 years. The next day, Gabriel texts me, and we meet at a coffee shop for lunch. I haven't responded to any of his texts. I haven't called him. I've spent the entire night and most of the morning trying to convince myself that I should have nothing to do with him. But I'm here anyway, sitting across from him at a coffee shop called Brewing Grounds, and I'm trying to figure out what we're doing. I know this is complicated, Gabriel says. I know that asking you to have a relationship with me is asking you to accept some really terrible things. But I need to be honest with you about what I want. Which is, I ask even though I already know, I've always known. I want you, he says. I want to rebuild whatever this is. I want to see if there's any way that we can be together, knowing everything that you know about me now. You're going to prison, I say. You know that, right? You said it yourself. You're probably going to prison eventually. I know, he says. And I won't ask you to wait for me. I won't ask you to ruin your life because of my choices. But right now, in this moment, I'm here. I'm not in prison yet. I might have months or years before that happens, and I want to spend that time with you if you'll let me. Why should I? I ask. Why should I give you a second chance when you didn't give me the courtesy of a goodbye? You shouldn't, he says. I don't deserve a second chance, but I'm asking for one anyway. I think about this. I think about the life I've built without him. I think about the job I love. I think about the apartment I've decorated and the routines I've established. I think about the person I've become in his absence. And I think about the fact that none of it has made me happy. None of it has filled the hole that he left when he disappeared. If I'm going to do this, I say, we need to be honest with each other about everything. No secrets, no protecting me from reality. I get to make informed choices about my own life. Okay, he says, honesty, I can do that. And you need to understand that I'm not the same person I was when you left, I say. I'm not 18 anymore. I'm not someone who's going to idealize you or excuse your choices. I know who you are, and I'm choosing to be with you anyway. But that choice is conditional. It's conditional on you being honest with me and treating me with respect. I can do that, he says again. Okay, I say. Then I'm willing to try this, but I need time to process. I need to figure out how to integrate you back into my life without losing myself in the process. How much time? He asks. I don't know yet, I say. Let me think about it. Over the next 2 weeks, I convince myself repeatedly that I'm making a terrible mistake. And then I see Gabriel anyway. We start small. We get coffee. We go for walks. We have dinner. We talk about everything except the elephant in the room, the fact that he's a cartel boss and I'm choosing to be in a relationship with him anyway. But eventually, that elephant becomes impossible to ignore. I need to understand what this means. I tell him one evening as we're sitting on my apartment balcony, looking out at the Miami skyline. If I'm going to be with you, I need to understand what my life is going to look like. What do you want to know? He asks. Everything, I say. I want to know how much danger I'm in. I want to know if you have enemies who would hurt me. I want to know what's going to happen when you go to prison. I want to know if I'm setting myself up to be devastated. Gabriel is quiet for a long time. I can see him calculating how much to tell me, how much honesty is too much honesty. The truth is, I don't know, he finally says. I don't know if you're in danger. I have people around me who could potentially hurt you. I have enemies. But I've worked very hard to keep my personal life separate from my professional life. No one in my organization knows about you. No one knows that I came to Miami to find you. How long is that going to last? I ask. How long before someone figures out that I'm important to you and uses that against you? I don't know, he says. But I promise you that I will do everything in my power to keep you safe. That's not nothing. It's also not a guarantee, I say. No, he agrees. It's not a guarantee, but it's all I can offer. I think about this. I think about the fact that I'm choosing to be with someone who can't guarantee my safety. I think about how that's probably the most irrational decision I've ever made. But I also think about the fact that I've spent 8 years without him, and I've never been happy. Maybe safety isn't the most important thing. Maybe love is. Okay, I say. I'm in. Let's do this. Over the next few months, Gabriel and I rebuild something that resembles a relationship. He moves into my apartment. Or rather, we get a new apartment together. A beautiful place in Brickell with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the water. It's the kind of apartment that screams new money, and it definitely screams cartel boss. But it's also beautiful, and it's ours, and that matters. We establish routines. We go to bed at the same time. We have breakfast together. We plan our days around each other. We build a life that looks, from the outside, like any other relationship. But there are signs of the reality underneath. Gabriel occasionally takes calls and steps into the other room, and I can hear the urgency in his voice even though I can't make out the words. He comes home some nights with blood on his hands that he washes off quickly and explains away. He has security people, 2 men who are always around, always watching, always ready to respond to threats. One night I ask him about the blood on his hands. Do I want to know? I ask. No, he says, you don't. But I'm going to ask anyway, I say. Did you hurt someone? Yes, he says. Someone was skimming from the operation. I took care of it. Did you kill them? I ask. No, he says, but it was close. I process this. I process the fact that the man I'm in love with just admitted to brutally assaulting someone. I process the fact that I'm living with a murderer, even if he hasn't murdered for this particular violation. Are you okay with that? Gabriel asks, watching my face carefully. No, I say. I'm not okay with it. But I'm choosing to accept it as part of who you are. I'm choosing to love you anyway. That's a lot to ask of you, he says. Yes, I agree. It is, but that's my choice to make. Gabriel takes me to meet his family for the first time since we've gotten back together. His family is large and traditional, and clearly has no idea that Gabriel is involved in organized crime. Or maybe they know and they just don't acknowledge it. It's hard to tell. His mother, Rosa, not the restaurant owner, is warm and kind and keeps trying to feed me. His father, Miguel, is quieter, but he watches Gabriel with an expression that suggests he understands more than he's letting on. Gabriel has 3 sisters and 2 brothers, and they all treat him with a mixture of respect and concern that makes it clear that something about him has changed since he left. You're the girl he left for, Gabriel's mother says to me when we have a moment alone. It's not a question. I'm not sure I'm anyone he left for, I say. I think he left because of who he was becoming, not because of me. Maybe, she says, but I know my son, and I know that he came back for a reason. That reason is you. His life is complicated, I say, not sure how much she knows or wants to know. His life has always been complicated, she says. Since he was a little boy, there's always been something about him, a restlessness, a hunger for something more than the life we could give him. I think he found that something, and it consumed him. But I always hoped that if he found someone who loved him anyway, it might pull him back. I do love him, I say, but I'm not sure that's enough to save him. Maybe not, she says, but maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is just that he's loved anyway. 3 years into our rebuilt relationship, Gabriel gets a call in the middle of the night. I wake up to him on the phone, his voice urgent and controlled, making arrangements for something. When he hangs up, he comes back to bed, and I can feel the tension radiating off him. What's wrong? I ask. We have a problem, he says. One of my distribution partners got arrested. He's going to flip. He's going to testify against me. I sit up, suddenly wide awake. What does that mean? I ask, even though I already know. It means the FBI is probably going to come after me. It means I have anywhere from days to weeks before they arrest me. It means that the normal life we've been trying to build is about to explode. I think about this. I think about the possibility that Gabriel is going to prison. I think about the fact that I've only just gotten him back, and now he's going to be taken away again. What do we do? I ask. We wait, he says. We wait for them to come, and when they do, I go quietly. I cooperate with my lawyers, and you. He pauses. You make a choice. What choice? I ask. You decide whether you're going to wait for me, he says, just like I'm deciding whether to ask you to. Are you asking me to? I ask. No, he says. I'm not going to ask you to wait. It wouldn't be fair. But I want you to know that if you do, if you choose to, I'll spend the rest of my life being grateful to you. The FBI arrives 2 weeks later with a warrant. I'm at work when it happens. Gabriel texts me. They're here, I'm going quietly. Don't worry, I'll be okay. But I am worried. I'm more worried than I've ever been in my entire life. I drive to FBI headquarters, and I wait in the parking lot for 3 hours until Gabriel is processed and I'm able to see him. When they finally bring him out, he's wearing an orange jumpsuit, and he looks smaller somehow, diminished by the institutional clothing. Hey, he says through the glass in the visitation room. You came. Of course I came, I say. What did you think I was going to do? I thought you might decide that this was too much, he says. I thought you might decide that you deserved better than this. I do deserve better, I say. But I also deserve to be with the person I love, and I love you, so here I am. I'm going to plead guilty, he tells me, to most of the charges. The federal prosecutors have offered me a deal, 20 years with eligibility for parole after 10. If I go to trial, I could get life. 20 years, I say, processing this. 20 years is a long time. I'm 31 years old right now. In 20 years, I'll be 51. Gabriel will be 55. I know, he says. It's a long time, and I'm not going to ask you to wait for me. Good, I say. Because I'm going to wait for you anyway, and I don't want you trying to talk me out of it. Gabriel's sentencing hearing happens 3 months later. He stands before the judge in his orange jumpsuit, and the judge lectures him about the severity of his crimes, about the lives he's destroyed, about the damage he's caused to his community. Gabriel listens without expression, but I can see the shame in his face. I can see that he understands the weight of what he's done. The judge sentences him to 20 years. Gabriel looks back at me one time before they take him away, and he nods, like he's telling me that this is something he can survive, that I should be able to survive it too. I visit Gabriel in federal prison every weekend for the first 5 years. The prison is located about 90 minutes outside of Miami, in a rural area that feels removed from civilization. The visiting room is depressing: fluorescent lights, plastic chairs, a pervasive sense of loss and regret. But Gabriel and I make it work. We talk about my job. We talk about his education program in prison. We talk about the life we're going to have when he gets out. Do you ever regret it? He asks me during one visit. Coming back to me, choosing to wait for me. Every single day, I tell him, but not in the way you think. I regret that my life has been put on hold. I regret that I'm visiting you in prison instead of planning a wedding or having children or living a normal life. But I don't regret choosing to love you. That's the one thing I don't regret. Gabriel's life in federal prison is manageable. That's the best word for it. He's in a minimum security facility, which means he has more freedom than he would in a higher security prison. He works in the education program, teaching other inmates about financial management and business. It's ironic, given his background, but the prison administration thinks it's beneficial for the inmates, and Gabriel doesn't seem to mind. In the letters he writes me, he describes the routine of prison life. Wake up at 6 a.m., breakfast in the cafeteria, work at 8 a.m., lunch at noon, more work, dinner at 5 p.m., evening activities, reading, classes, visitors on weekends. It's not terrible, he writes. It's boring, but it's not terrible. I'm learning a lot about myself. I'm reading about philosophy and history and trying to understand how I became the person I became. I'm also learning that I'm capable of being something other than a cartel boss. That might be the most important lesson I'll ever learn. I visit him every weekend, and we sit in the visitation room, and we talk about everything. I tell him about work, about the patients I'm caring for, about the relationships I'm building with my colleagues, about the fact that I've been promoted to charge nurse, and I'm now supervising a team of people. I'm proud of you, he tells me. I want you to know that. I'm proud of who you're becoming, even though it's happening without me. You're not without me, I tell him. You're always with me. You're in every decision I make. You're the first person I want to tell when something good happens. That's not healthy, he says. You should be building a life that doesn't center around me. My life does center around you, I say. It always has. The only difference is that now I'm being honest about it instead of pretending that I've moved on. While Gabriel is in prison, I advance my nursing career significantly. I take additional certifications. I become specialized in cardiology. I take a job as a supervisor at Jackson Memorial Hospital, one of the largest hospitals in Miami. I work my way up to becoming the head of the cardiac nursing unit. The work is fulfilling in a way that I didn't expect. I'm not just caring for patients. I'm mentoring younger nurses, developing protocols, improving outcomes. I'm building something that matters. Tell me about your day, Gabriel requests during one visit. He's genuinely interested, and I realize that this is one of the ways we stay connected, through the details of our daily lives. I tell him about a patient I cared for, a woman who came in with a heart attack and who, over the course of her recovery, decided to make major life changes. She quit smoking. She started exercising. She ended a toxic relationship. She rebuilt her entire life. She reminds me of someone, I tell Gabriel. Who? He asks. You, I say. She's choosing to become someone different. She's choosing to transform herself. The difference is that she has the opportunity to make those choices, Gabriel says. I'm in prison. My choices are limited. Your choices are more limited, I agree. But you're still making them. You're choosing to educate yourself. You're choosing to teach other inmates. You're choosing to be honest with yourself about who you've been and who you want to become. That matters. By year 10 of Gabriel's sentence, we've been waiting for half as long as we still have to wait. 10 years, that's a long time. That's long enough to make serious life changes. That's long enough to know that what we have is real. Gabriel is eligible for parole in 5 years, though there's no guarantee he'll get it. The federal prison system is complicated, and there are many factors that determine whether someone gets released early. I think about what our life will look like when I get out, Gabriel tells me during one visit. I think about it constantly. Is that healthy? I'm not sure, but I can't help it. What do you imagine? I ask. I imagine that we'll get a house somewhere, he says. Maybe not here in Miami because there are too many people who remember what I used to be. Somewhere small and quiet. Maybe the Keys or maybe further away. I imagine that you'll continue your career. I imagine that I'll find some kind of legitimate work. I imagine that we'll try to live as normally as possible. That sounds nice, I say. That sounds like something worth waiting for. It does, he agrees. But I also know that I'm being naive. I know that coming out of prison with 20 years of time served doesn't just erase who I was. I know that I'm going to struggle with that. I know that you're going to struggle with that. Yeah, I agree, but we'll figure it out. Gabriel's parole hearing happens in year 15 of his imprisonment. He's eligible for parole, and his lawyer believes he has a good case. Gabriel has been a model prisoner. He's earned his GED and taken college courses. He's taught other inmates. He's shown no signs of aggression or rule breaking. I think I have a real shot, he tells me in the days before the hearing. But the parole board denies him. They cite his violent history. They cite the severity of his crimes. They cite the fact that he's served less than half his sentence. He'll be eligible again in 2 years. I visit him after the decision, and I can see the disappointment on his face, but I can also see something else: resilience. He's learned how to survive disappointment. This is okay, he tells me. I'll wait. We'll both wait. We've come this far. 2 years later, Gabriel goes before the parole board again. This time, I'm there. I'm sitting in the gallery, and I'm listening to the parole board question Gabriel about his crimes, about his time in prison, about his plans for when he gets out. Gabriel answers honestly. He doesn't minimize what he did. He doesn't make excuses. He just tells the truth about who he was and who he's become. I'm not going to tell you that I'm a good person, Gabriel says. I don't think I get to claim that. I'm a person who did terrible things. I'm a person who hurt people. But I'm also a person who spent 17 years in prison thinking about those terrible things and trying to understand how I became someone capable of doing them. I'm a person who's trying to become better, and I'm asking for the opportunity to continue that transformation outside of prison. The parole board deliberates for 2 hours. Then they grant him parole. Gabriel will be released in 4 weeks. The day Gabriel is released from prison, I'm waiting for him in the parking lot with a car and a suitcase full of clothes that I bought for him. Clothes that fit a man who spent 17 years in prison and lost muscle, not someone with the body of a criminal anymore. When he walks out through the gates, he looks smaller than I remember. He looks lighter somehow, like he's been relieved of a weight that he carried for so long that he'd forgotten what it felt like to exist without it. Hi, he says when he reaches me. Hi, I say, and I pull him into an embrace. He feels real and solid and alive in a way that he never felt through the plexiglass of the prison visitation room. I can't believe I'm out, he says. I can't believe this is real. It's real, I tell him. You're out, you're free. We drive back to Miami together, and Gabriel stares out the window like he's seeing the city for the first time. Maybe he is. Maybe 17 years in prison has changed how he sees everything. The first few months after Gabriel's release are disorienting. He's out of prison, but he's on parole, which means he has restrictions. He has to check in with a parole officer. He has to wear an ankle monitor. He has limitations on where he can go and what he can do. But he also has freedom in a way that he hasn't experienced in 17 years. I help him navigate the modern world. I show him how to use the internet, how to use a smartphone, how social media works. I take him shopping for clothes that fit properly. I take him to restaurants and let him choose whatever he wants from the menu because he wants everything. I want to go back to school, he tells me after a few weeks of readjustment. I want to finish my degree. I want to do something legitimate with my life. Okay, I say, let's make that happen. He enrolls in a community college and starts taking classes. He wants to study business administration, which is ironic given his background, but he wants to understand business in a legitimate way. He also starts looking for work. No one wants to hire someone with a violent felony and 17 years of prison time on their record. But eventually, a small construction company agrees to give him a job. It's hard physical labor, but he doesn't complain. He's just grateful to be working. Over the next few years, Gabriel and I build a new life together. He finishes his degree. He gets promoted at the construction company. He's eventually able to remove the ankle monitor because his parole officer determines that he's a low flight risk and a low recidivism risk. I continue advancing my career. I'm offered a job as the director of nursing at a private hospital, and I take it. The pay is better, the hours are more manageable, and I get to have more influence over how patient care is delivered. We buy a house, a small, modest house in Coral Gables with a backyard and a guest room and everything we need. It's not flashy or expensive or anything like the penthouse that Gabriel used to have. It's just home. Do you ever miss it? I ask him one day as we're working on renovating the kitchen. The money, the power, the danger. No, he says. I thought I would. I thought that after 17 years in prison, I'd come out and miss the life I had. But I don't. I miss the person I was sometimes because that person didn't have to carry the guilt of what he did. But the life itself, no, this is better. This is real. Gabriel proposes to me on our back porch on a Friday evening in autumn. We're sitting outside with drinks, watching the sunset, and he just turns to me and says, "Will you marry me?" Just like that, I ask. Just like that, he says. I've waited 17 years for this. I've imagined asking you 1,000 different ways, but they all feel too complicated. So I'm just asking, will you marry me? Yes, I say. Of course I'll marry you. We don't have a big wedding. We have a small ceremony with family and close friends. Gabriel's mother cries happy tears. My parents, who have been skeptical about my relationship with Gabriel but have come to respect his commitment to change, seem genuinely happy. We exchange vows that acknowledge the complicated nature of our relationship. I know who you were, I tell Gabriel. I know what you did. I know that you hurt people, but I also know who you're becoming. I know that you're spending your life trying to make amends. And I'm choosing to love you anyway, not in spite of your past, but with full knowledge of it. I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that love, Gabriel says. I promise to continue becoming better. I promise to be honest with you. I promise to build this life with you, knowing that we're doing it on the foundation of terrible choices, but trying to build something good from those ashes. By year 25 after his release, Gabriel and I have been together for exactly 30 years. 30 years of waiting, rebuilding, and loving each other. Gabriel is 55 years old now. He's the manager of the construction company where he started as a laborer. He's legitimate. He's respected. He's built a good life. I'm 48 years old. I'm still the director of nursing. I've published articles on patient care. I'm recognized in my field. We're stable. We're happy. We're exactly where we thought we might be when he was sitting in prison, imagining our future. Do you ever think about how different our life would have been if I hadn't gone back to Miami after getting out? Gabriel asks me during a quiet evening at home. I think about it sometimes, I say, but I don't regret any of it. Every choice we made, every sacrifice we made led us here. Even the 17 years in prison. He asks, especially those 17 years, I say, because those years taught us that our love was real. Those years tested us and we survived. I don't know that we would have appreciated this life the way we do now if we hadn't had to fight for it. I'm lying in bed one night, and I'm thinking about how my life turned out. I'm thinking about the 18-year-old girl who fell in love with Gabriel Morales and thought that love would be enough to overcome anything. I'm thinking about the woman who watched him disappear into organized crime. I'm thinking about the woman who waited 17 years for him in prison. I'm thinking about the woman I am now, lying next to him, knowing exactly who he is and choosing to stay anyway. What are you thinking about? Gabriel asks sleepily. I'm thinking about how strange my life is, I say. How unlikely all of this is. What are the odds that I see you at an airport? What are the odds that you've spent the last 8 years thinking about me? What are the odds that I choose to wait for you in prison? What are the odds that we end up here, happy, stable together? I don't believe in odds, Gabriel says. I think we make our own destiny. And I think that you and I are destined to be together. I think that we've been moving toward this moment since we were 18 years old. That's very romantic, I say. I learned it from you, he says. You're the one who believed that we could survive anything. You're the one who waited. You're the one who chose this. Do you ever think about having children? I asked Gabriel one day. We've never discussed it directly, but it's something I've wondered about. Gabriel is 55. I'm 48. We're at an age where having biological children would be difficult, though not impossible. I've thought about it, he says. I've thought about the fact that I could have a son or a daughter who doesn't know who their father is or what their father did. But I've also thought about the fact that I probably shouldn't pass on my genes, given everything I've done. That's not how it works, I say. Just because you did terrible things doesn't mean your children would. Maybe not, he says, but I don't want to risk it. I don't want to create another person who might struggle with the darkness that I struggled with. Okay, I say. Then we don't have children. But I want you to know that I think you would have been a good father. I think you've become the kind of man who could raise a child to be good. Thank you, he says. But I'm okay with it being just us. By year 30 after Gabriel's release, we've been together for 40 years total. 40 years. That's a remarkable amount of time to be with another person. That's long enough to truly know them. That's long enough for love to evolve from passionate to deep. Gabriel is 60 years old. I'm 53. We're not old, but we're no longer young. We've earned the right to be comfortable. Gabriel has transitioned from construction management to consulting. He works with small businesses, helping them understand finance and operations. It's ironic, given his background, but he has a unique perspective that's valuable to legitimate business owners. I've transitioned into training and curriculum development. I'm less involved in direct patient care and more involved in developing protocols and training new nurses. It's less physically demanding, and it allows me more time to think about the big picture of healthcare. We have a good life. We have a house that we love. We have jobs that matter to us. We have routines that sustain us. We have each other. One day, someone from Gabriel's criminal past shows up at my hospital. A man named Victor, Gabriel's original cartel boss, comes to the emergency room after suffering a heart attack. I recognize him immediately from photos Gabriel showed me years ago. He's older now, weaker, but there's still something dangerous about him. I don't let Gabriel know that Victor is there. I don't want to disrupt his new life. Instead, I care for Victor professionally, and I don't tell Gabriel until months later, when I'm sure that Victor has recovered and moved on. Why didn't you tell me? Gabriel asks when I finally mention it. Because I wanted to protect you, I say. I wanted to keep your current life separate from your past. That's not your job, Gabriel says. That's not healthy. I need to know what's happening in my life. You're right, I say. I'm sorry. I should have told you. But the encounter with Victor has shaken something loose in Gabriel. He starts asking questions about his past that he hasn't asked in years. Do you think I've actually changed? He asks me one night. Or do you think I'm just the same person, just in different circumstances? I think you've changed, I say. But I also think that change is fragile. I think that you could probably fall back into old patterns if the circumstances allowed it. But you're choosing not to. That's what makes it real. How can you be sure? He asks. I can't be sure, I say. I'm just making a choice to believe in you, and I keep making that choice every single day. Gabriel starts volunteering with a Trisk youth in Miami. He works with boys who are growing up in poverty, who are vulnerable to the same pull toward organized crime that Gabriel felt when he was young. He teaches them about business, about finance, about the consequences of criminal choices. Why are you doing this? I ask him. Because I want to save people from the path I took, he says. I want to show them that there's another way. I want to be the person for them, that no one was for me. The work is deeply meaningful to Gabriel. I can see it in the way his face lights up when he talks about one of his mentees. I can see it in the energy he brings to the work. And I realize that Gabriel's true redemption isn't about serving his time in prison or building a legitimate business. His true redemption is about using his experience of crime to help others avoid that path. I start volunteering with Gabriel, but in a different capacity. I work with a nonprofit that provides healthcare to people who can't afford it. Many of our clients are formerly incarcerated, and many are struggling with the reintegration that Gabriel experienced. I create healthcare protocols specifically for formerly incarcerated people, understanding their unique vulnerabilities. I train other nurses in trauma-informed care for this population. Gabriel and I are working toward the same goal from different angles, helping people who have been hurt by the criminal justice system find their way back to normal life. Gabriel is nominated for an award for his community service. The award is given by a local nonprofit organization, recognizing people who have dedicated themselves to helping at-risk youth. Gabriel is shocked when he finds out that he's won. "You deserve this," I tell him when he gets the news. "I don't deserve anything," he says. "I'm a former cartel boss. I've killed people. I spent 17 years in prison. The fact that I get to be here, doing this work, is already more than I deserve." "Stop that," I say. "Stop doing that thing where you minimize your redemption by focusing on your crimes. You're allowed to be proud of the work you're doing. You're allowed to accept recognition for the good you're creating." "Am I?" he asks. "Yes," I say, "you are." At the awards ceremony, Gabriel stands up and gives a speech about why this work matters to him. "I could have stayed in prison," he says. "I could have become bitter about my sentence. I could have come out and gone back to crime. But I didn't. And that choice has led me here, to this moment where I'm being recognized for helping other people make better choices. If my experience with crime can prevent even one person from going down that path, then my life has purpose. Then my redemption is real." By year 35 after Gabriel's release, our relationship has evolved into something that I'm not sure has a name. It's not the passionate, youthful love that we had when we were 18 and 19. It's not the desperate, survival-focused love that we had when he was in prison. It's something deeper and more complicated. It's the love of two people who have been through hell together. It's the love of two people who know each other completely. It's the love of two people who have chosen each other over and over again, not because of passion, but because of commitment. "I love you," I tell Gabriel often, and he always responds, "I love you too." But the love is different now. It's quieter. It's more certain. It's less about butterflies and more about the deep comfort of knowing that someone is going to be there every single day for the rest of your life. As we get older, Gabriel and I start talking about death in a way that we haven't before. "What do you want?" I ask him one day. "When the time comes, do you want a big funeral? Do you want to be cremated? Do you want your ashes scattered somewhere meaningful?" "I don't know," he says. "I haven't thought about it much." "Maybe you should," I say. "Because I want to make sure that when the time comes, I do what you would have wanted. I want to be remembered as someone who changed," he says. "I don't want my tombstone to say, cartel boss. I don't want people to remember me for the terrible things I did. I want them to remember me for the work I did to help other people. I want them to remember me as a man who tried to be better." "Okay," I say. "I'll make sure they remember you that way." When Gabriel is 65 years old, he has a stroke. It's a minor stroke. He recovers most of his mobility and his speech, but it forces us to confront the fact that our time together isn't infinite, that one of us will eventually die, and the other will have to continue living without them. During his recovery, Gabriel is frustrated and angry in a way that I haven't seen since he was in prison. "I'm not ready to die," he tells me. "I just got my life back. I just built something legitimate. I just started making a real difference. It's not fair that my time is limited." "No," I agree, "it's not fair. But none of this has been fair, has it? We've never expected fairness. We've just expected each other." "I'm scared," he says, and it's the first time he's admitted fear to me in a long time. I know, I say, but I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. After Gabriel's stroke, I become his primary caregiver. He has physical therapy multiple times per week. He has doctor's appointments. He has medications that he needs to take. I manage all of it. It's physically and emotionally demanding work, but I don't regret it. I've waited 40 years for this man. I'm not going to abandon him now. I'm sorry, Gabriel tells me one day. I'm sorry that you have to take care of me. I'm sorry that I'm sick and weak and dependent on you. Don't be sorry, I say. You waited for me when I was broken. Now I'm waiting for you. This is what love is. This is what commitment means. Gabriel and I have 5 more years together after his stroke. They're good years, despite the limitations. Gabriel continues his volunteer work, though he has to reduce his hours. I continue my work at the hospital. We continue living our life together. We travel a little, nothing too strenuous, just trips to places we love. We spend time with Gabriel's family. We spend time with my family. We spend time with friends. We live. Thank you, Gabriel tells me often. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for coming back to me at that airport, I tell him. Thank you for being honest about who you were. Thank you for spending these 40 years becoming someone better. Gabriel dies on a Tuesday morning in March. He's 70 years old. I'm 63. We've been together for 45 years. He's been out of prison for 30 years. He dies in his sleep, peacefully, at home, in the bed that we've shared for so many years. There are no dramatic final words. There's no big goodbye. He just stops breathing, and when I wake up, he's gone. At first, I can't comprehend it. I can't believe that the man who's been my center, my reason for living, my anchor, is just gone. I sit next to him for a long time, just holding his hand, understanding that I'm going to have to learn how to live without him. That I'm going to have to figure out who I am without Gabriel Morales being the center of my world. Gabriel's funeral is large and well-attended. People come who he's mentored. People come from his volunteer work. People come from his work in construction and consulting. People come who he's helped navigate their own redemptions. They all tell stories about how Gabriel changed their lives. They all talk about his integrity and his kindness and his commitment to helping others. No one talks about the fact that he was once a cartel boss. No one talks about the 17 years he spent in prison. No one talks about the people he hurt or the crimes he committed. And I'm grateful for that, even though I know it's not the whole story. I'm grateful that people are choosing to remember Gabriel for who he became, not for who he was. The months after Gabriel's death are the hardest months of my life, not because I didn't expect his death. I did. But because nothing really prepares you for the absence of someone who's been a constant presence in your life for 45 years. I find myself reaching for my phone to text him about something, forgetting that he's gone. I find myself cooking his favorite foods out of habit, only to remember that he won't be there to eat them. I find myself waking up in the middle of the night, disoriented by the absence of him beside me. But I continue living. I continue working. I continue volunteering. I continue building a life, even though it's not the life I expected to be living. Gabriel's volunteer work continues after his death. His organization creates the Gabriel Morales Scholarship for At-Risk Youth, which provides funding for young people who are vulnerable to gang involvement or criminal activity. I donate Gabriel's estate to this fund, ensuring that his work will continue for years after his death. I continue my own volunteer work in healthcare. I develop a protocol in Gabriel's name for healthcare providers working with formerly incarcerated people. I train other nurses in this protocol. I ensure that Gabriel's legacy continues. I'm 65 years old, 3 years after Gabriel's death, and I'm reflecting on what our relationship actually meant. For 45 years, Gabriel and I built a life together. We survived his absence, his criminal activity, his imprisonment, his reintegration. We aged together. We loved each other. And I realized that our love was never simple or pure or easy. It was complicated and difficult and sometimes painful, but it was real, and it mattered. Gabriel spent his entire adult life trying to become someone better. He didn't do it because he was a good person naturally. He did it because he had to, because the weight of who he'd been was unbearable, and the only way to survive was to become someone different. And I spent my entire adult life loving him through that transformation. I didn't do it because I was naive or foolish. I did it because I believed that people are capable of change. I did it because I believed that love is worth the sacrifice. I did it because Gabriel was worth the sacrifice. If I could give advice to someone who's in a relationship with someone with a complicated past, someone who's done terrible things, someone who's trying to change, I would tell them this: love is not redemption. Love does not erase crimes. Love does not save people. People save themselves. People change themselves. People choose, every single day, to be different from who they were the day before. What love does is provide the support system that makes change possible. What love does is create the motivation to keep trying when change feels impossible. What love does is provide the witness to transformation, the person who sees the change happening and believes in it and celebrates it. Gabriel was not redeemed by my love. Gabriel redeemed himself. But my love made it possible for him to believe that redemption was worth pursuing. And that, I think, is what our 45-year relationship actually meant. It meant that Gabriel and I were partners in his transformation. It meant that I believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. It meant that together, we created something good out of something terrible. The second chance wasn't Gabriel's to have. It was mine to give. And I gave it to him every single day for 45 years.